Generals from space sat in their tall war chambers, disdainful voices, and overconfidence that they had accumulated over years establishing an empire that ruled over thousands earthly civilizations with ease was only another little planet with rudimentary defenses they examined intercepted. Information from the military on Earth giggling over how simple its weaponry, strategies, fleets, and troops had encountered advanced technologies previously, and they anticipated Earth's demise. Even more quickly than earlier victories for the Galactic Empire has grown throughout the years. Its reach by removing obstacles in their control over it was so total that the majority of species gave up before even the conflict started on planets with advanced defenses have collapsed in a matter of days on Earth. By the contrast seemed nearly absurd. Planet that was dependent on antiquated military tactics dispersed by technology and its nation's seeming lack of unity, it wasn't difficult, rather, it was a step towards the alien generals disdainfully discussed their intentions. Earth's armaments include missiles, tanks, and jets. Appeared to be relics in contrast to their energy shields from plasma guns and bioengineered soldiers. According to intelligence sources, Earth's in less than a week, the forces would disintegrate. Arrogance replaced confidence as they rejected any possibility of significance despite their opposition. Earth was a planet appropriate for conquest with the means to theft and no chance of financial loss among the generals. There was no discussion regarding strategy. Their enormous numbers and brute force was the result of modern technology. Would be enough soldiers to land cities would decline, and the population of Earth would give up the generals as soon as possible. Undervalued a vital component, the planet Earth's unpredictable. They viewed people as the galactics are not resourceful or primitive. Empire has never seen a species before. Similar to the military of humanity on Earth, leaders noticed the fleet coming. Satellites detected odd activity in radar, and deep space systems started to display odd, large items in motion. Panic set in as global in the direction of the planet powers rushed to comprehend the Earth's leaders are ill-prepared for a threat emergency of the extraterrestrial invasion. Gatherings countries that had previously been at odds were abruptly compelled to despite their disagreement. Yes, they worked together. Shared a single insight regarding this invasion would not be like anything they had encountered before. Prior to those who were viewing, a retired Marine was witnessing the carnage. Avoiding the commotion and leading a peaceful existence of international politics that he had worked for decades of fighting skills training and strategy, but it is no longer in use. Duty, his intuition stayed keen. Observing the press coverage of he recognized the alien fleet coming up. The extent of the danger, but others. In a frenzy, he started getting ready. He learned from his years of expertise that the survival of Earth wouldn't rely on adaptation and technology, but also willpower. The Marine examined the receiving reports and examining the trends of extraterrestrial movements and their selection of targets. He was aware of the advantages and Earth's military shortcomings. But he additionally understood that conventional warfare would not function as the alien generals anticipated a predictable battle that they could readily control. This presumption would be their first error. The Marine started gathering in stealth. He called up old allies to get what he needed, utilized military forces, and started creating a strategy as global powers discussed their next move. He concentrated on he knew the aliens, so he could control them, would undervalue him in the same way they erred by underestimating humanity. In the interim, he planned to fully use the alien generals when over there. Creating a strategy as global powers discussed their next move, he concentrated on he knew the aliens, so he could control them, would undervalue him in the same way they erred by underestimating humanity. In the interim, he planned to fully use the alien generals when over there. Advancement as the fleet got closer to Earth. Its overconfidence made them oblivious to possible dangers. They had overcome civilizations with superior technology easily, making it a less developed planet. Showed no danger, and they disregarded all warnings that the powers of Earth could adjust or battle back to humanity in surprising ways. Served as only a barrier to be removed in spite of their consi. The alien generals were unable to understand the Earth's complexity as a planet was Earth molded by millennia of war, innovation, and survival. Its citizens had encountered innumerable obstacles, and conquering them with this tradition of inventiveness and tenacity what made it invisible to the aliens was Earth was different. It wasn't merely another conquest, served as a galactic test. Empire's perception of the unknowable. The Galactic Empire's stage was set. The fleet arrived prepared to impose its will. The Marines be ready on Earth, silently aware that the days ahead would determine the future of the planet. The alien generals were unaware of what was ahead. They were oblivious to their own arrogance because for them this was just another standard conquest. It was a struggle for humanity's survival. Under the direction of a man who recognized the extraterrestrial fleet entered the fight, and its nature the atmosphere of Earth precisely and speed their cutting-edge technologies, enabling them to get around Earth's defenses. Massive ships can easily obscure the skies. Their existence is a glaring example of the strength of the galactic empire the Earth military hurried to react. Deploying missiles, tanks, and jets and try to prevent each of the invaders from the country raised its troops, but the disparities in technology became Earth's armaments are immediately visible. Created to resolve human disputes, as demonstrated useless against the energy of the invader, adaptive armor, missiles, and shields harmlessly exploded in the direction of alien ships. Whereas ground units and tanks were destroyed by weapons that use energy, the invaders invaded and proceeded systematically. Focusing on vital infrastructure and turning off communications network strategy was based on overwhelming dominance guarantees that there are no coordinated, despite the disarray, resistance might emerge. The leaders of Earth tried to come up with a plan. Meetings for emergencies were conducted in secure places, whereas global power is set aside their differences in order to concentrate on survival. Information was exchanged across national boundaries. However, the invasion's pace left limited space for preparation efforts to research on the invaders' technology produced few outcomes due to the extreme intricacy of their systems were superior than our ones. They had seen citizens as cities crumbled. Escaped in fear, extraterrestrial troops created for effectiveness as opposed to sentiment carried out their duties with icy precision. Their actions were planned using they didn't cause much collateral harm, eager to destroy for its own sake because they wanted to be in charge and be obedient. From orbit, the generals observed, assured of their success. Earth's resistance to their activity was merely a momentary irritation. The few conflicts were fought on the battlefield. Demonstrated the striking difference between the two military units of extraterrestrial soldiers outfitted with sophisticated targeting mechanisms and enhanced physical prowess is readily surpassed. The armor worn by human warriors was modified to throw back projectiles, as their weaponry produced disastrous outcomes using human forces are ill-prepared and exert little effort, because the adversary incurred significant losses. Despite these obstacles, there are areas of soldiers started to assemble in resistance. Citizens, as well as small groups of independent fighters, began to adjust. Their guerrilla-style warfare methods arose in reaction to the overwhelming invaders' firepower. Small groups focused on supply chains and took advantage of the terrain. The aliens were slowed down by these attempts. Progress, but it was still far from sufficient. In order to reverse, the alien generals noted these changes with mild. They were amused by Earth's efforts to resist as a last-ditch futile vanquished species. They continued to concentrate on protecting important resources and getting rid of organized dangers. To the success of the invasion appeared to be unavoidable. But the generals neglected to acknowledge the expanding tenacity among the defenders of Earth as the battle intensifies. The Marine started to implement his strategy was distinct from the extensive military activities being managed by Earth's governments. Rather than depending on conventional strategies, he concentrated on taking advantage of his flaws recognized in the extraterrestrial forces. His understanding of human warfare in conjunction with a capacity for original thought he had an advantage due to the pressure that the invaders hadn't expected. The Marines' operations, notwithstanding their tiny scale, started to significantly affect his capacity to avoid detection and hit the invader was disrupted with precision. Activities extraterrestrial patrols used to typical interactions discovered themselves outwitted and overpowered. The inventiveness of the Marines revealed a serious weakness in the foreign generals' approach. Their dependence on technology. Their superiority had not equipped them for human ingenuity and adaptability. Resistance as evidence of these, the alien command was disrupted. They were rejected as isolated by the generals. Events in which they maintained their confidence, their capacity to conquer the Earth, undervaluing the importance of these preliminary indications of opposition. The emphasis stayed on bigger goals. Thinking that an overwhelming victory would crush whatever opposition that is still present on the ground, the Marines' achievement started to motivate people with tales of his deeds spread swiftly, giving them hope. Who had started to lose hope in soldiers, and both citizens and others began to imitate his strategies, utilizing imagination and inventiveness to combat the alien forces. This change in approach signaled a pivotal moment as opposition initiatives become more efficient and well-coordinated. The foreign generals remain oblivious to the escalating danger, pushed ahead with their strategies, and their arrogance hindered their ability to adjust to the conflict's dynamics. They kept considering Earth to be a simple conquest's inability to understand resilience among its citizens. This error in judgment would quickly prove to be expensive as the seeds of resistance started to establish itself on the Marines' standing of war on a greater scale went beyond standard strategies, and this provided him with an instant advantage. Acknowledged that the immigrants were dependent on, although technologically sophisticated, their shields and armor were rigid, designed to thwart projectile weaponry and assaults using energy, although they hadn't been evaluated in light of the unpredictable nature of the Marine concentrated on human strategy. Taking advantage of this rigidity aiming flaws that the aliens failed to take into account, his plan's initial phase was to eliminate their reliance on sophisticated sensing and monitoring devices that he disturbed the natural ecology of Earth. Their capacity to find him dense subterranean, urban ruins, and woodlands networks offered ideal cover, enabling him to avoid detection by turning off drones and interfering with their interactions with makeshift gadgets. He caused the aliens to get confused. The inventiveness of the Marines and forces went so far as to use technology from other planets. In opposition to them, he recovered equipment from reverse engineering of fallen soldiers, their tools to comprehend their capabilities that enabled him to alter these resources for his personal use, establishing a hybrid strategy that combined human inventiveness using extraterrestrial developments. For he transformed a plasma emitter, for instance, into a shield disruptor that is portable, allowing him to get past their otherwise unbreakable barriers. His techniques that interfered with the invaders' operations on several tiers of supply lines that were essential to preserving their ambushes turned their attention to dominance. Extraterrestrial vehicles carrying ammunition, then reinforcements came under assault with delays in their precision, forcing these minor but powerful offensives. The extraterrestrial became frustrated by strikes. Leaders who were unfamiliar with such strategies, the Marines' use in battle highlighted accuracy and psychological influence as opposed to directly conflict. He employed hit-and-run strategies to undermine the adversary in each interaction was made to cause the most harm possible while reducing the amount of exposure that the aliens were compelled by uncertainty to devote more resources to pursuing him, distributing their forces more widely and decreasing their effectiveness, and his capacity to quickly adjust to shifting conditions constituted a crucial element in his achievement. When the aliens changed how they operated, he moved to counter his ambushes. Other tactics that guaranteed they could never have anticipated his next action. This being flexible didn't just keep him ahead of the game, but also demonstrated the shortcomings of the aliens. Imposed their tactics, while efficient, while facing more conventional opponents, couldn't compete with the inventiveness and conclusion of a single person. The Marines' behavior started to affect his strategies for wider opposition. Included distributed using subterranean networks, others to follow in addresses both military and citizens. Began applying their understanding of local resources and terrain to interfere with this decentralized alien plan. Resistance made the situation even worse. Problems faced by the invaders as they attempted to combat a variety of erratic threats. Generals from other countries noticed these changes that are causing them to become increasingly concerned. Initial assurance started to falter as tales of setbacks and failures accumulated. The attacks of the Marines interfered with not just their business operations, but additionally, the extraterrestrial soldiers who had been conditioned to anticipate quick wins discovered that an enemy had discouraged them. They were unable to find or comprehend. In order to overcome these obstacles, the alien elite unit was sent by generals, especially charged with getting rid of these specialist forces were Marines, outfitted with cutting-edge tracking technologies and weapons that are adaptable and made to oppose his strategies. But the Marines' deep familiarity with his surroundings offered him an advantage, even against these strong foes. He utilized their overdependence on technology to draw them into traps that will turn their strengths into weaknesses. Of the extraterrestrial elite troops, despite their equipment and training, lost a lot of Marines. Strategy and execution skills are still lacking. They are confused and exposed as a result. Failure put the alien under more stress. The internal command organization of the general. Disagreements arose on how to continue. The once unified leadership started to split with opposing thoughts on how to handle the increasing opposition. The cumulative effect of the Marines' work was deep. He not only interfered with the aliens' immediate actions, but moreover revealed serious shortcomings in their methodology. Their dependence on brute force and supremacy in technology demonstrated ineffectual against the resolute and adaptable enemy. This insight started to erode their self-confidence, making them face the potential of failure. The effectiveness of the Marine was based on his comprehension of the enemy's perspective, while utilizing that he was aware of humanity's special strengths. The alien generals considered to be a weak and archaic world and he made use of this impression to his benefit by he compelled them to question their presumptions, them into uncharted terrain, where their tactics and technological capabilities could no longer ensure achievement, as the alien forces fought to take back control of the Marine persisted in moving forward with determination. By a strong sense of obligation and resolve, his acts had already started to change the power dynamics, demonstrating the tenacity of humanity, and the inventiveness was significantly superior to the invaders were expecting the alien once convinced of their victory. Generals suddenly had to confront the grim truth of their adversary misjudged how strong the invasion would be. Started to change as the forces of Earth adjusted to the early Marines' new reality despite being modest in scope. Victory had demonstrated that the aliens weren't unstoppable. His strategies had sparked a worldwide opposition that brings nations together and people working toward a common goal at one point. Military leaders were overwhelmed by the extraterrestrial troops' current superiority, started using non-traditional tactics. They dispersed their activities that depend on smaller, more units on the move to combat the invaders. Earth's opposition increased, organized with guerrilla warfare to interfere with important aspects of the foreign attacks on invasion infrastructure, including disrupting electricity sources and turning off. The aliens were compelled by transport systems to reroute resources from their main goal. Every blow reduced their capacity to keep authority over occupied areas that the invaders were used to. Quick and resounding winds were discovered, themselves imprisoned for an extended dispute that sapped their spirits and resources that the foreign generals are aware of. Their attention was diverted by the increasing menace to eradicate the oppositions, directing their intelligence activities enhanced by advanced surveillance systems put in place to monitor human motions and pinpoint important objectives. Nevertheless, the decentralized approach of the resistance made it challenging to identify one vulnerability of the Marine, who functioned without the assistance of any official. The leadership organization was still unclear as the dispute intensified and the alien elite forces were used by generals. To these troops were outfitted with advanced technologies and educated to adjust to non-traditional strategies. The objective was to neutralize the opposition and apprehend the Marine who had come to represent disobedience. These elite units first succeeded in some achievement in hitting important obstacles, hubs, and breaking up smaller teams, but they soon came upon the same difficulties as the typical extraterrestrial forces. The Marines' capacity to foresee and oppose these elites' movements. Soldiers emerged as a crucial element in the continuous struggle. He took advantage of their dependency on advanced systems that generate circumstances under which their technological benefits turned into drawbacks by focusing on their supplier chains and imposing interactions in settings where their equipment was less efficient. Steadily diminished their power. The damages incurred by these expert units discouraged the alien even more. Forces. Earth's opposition persisted in developing knowledge from every interaction with the citizens who invaded, helped in surprising methods, utilizing their understanding of local topography and assets to support the combatants. Engineers and scientists created makeshift answers to tools for countering alien technologies and weapons that made the game more equal. The soldiers' joint efforts. The Marines and citizens established a strong resistance that the aliens had failed to foresee. The foreign generals encountered increasing internal decline as their plans caused their initial optimism to falter. Quickly, victory had made way for some thought for a while about frustration and blame, more forceful strategy supporting the application of tremendous force to crush the opposition. Others advised prudence, realizing that their present strategies were ineffectual and the internal divisions. Their numbers made it harder for them to react in unison, which gives you more confidence. The protectors of Earth. Amid this chaos, the Marines' activities came to a crucial period. He initiated a number of concerted attacks that were directed at vital extraterrestrial command centers, such as the invaders were disturbed by operations capacity to synchronize their forces, causing chaos and confusion inside. Alien commanders used to their ranks struggled to transition to centralized control and adjust to the communication breakdown and resources that the alien generals are in dire need of. It took an unusual amount of actions they personally underwent when the surface decided to supervise the latter phases of the invasion, even though it was meant to raise spirits and reveal their resolve. People to the conflict's realities. The generals who had before noted from their ships secure now to the severe warfare conditions on Earth's ground presence brought short-term advantages for the extraterrestrial forces as under their direction, the soldiers. But the Marine perceived this as a chance. He turned his attention to aiming directly at the generals with knowledge that its loss would result in a major setback to the invaders' attempts. He used isolation as a tactic from their soldiers, employing the same strategies that had worked well during the battle. The Marines' fight against the extraterrestrial generals signaled a sea change. staged throughout the conflict his capacity to outthink and outmaneuver his rivals. Proved the power of human tenacity and inventiveness. In every victory encouraged increased self-assurance in our defenders, demonstrating the aliens. The generals are not an unstoppable force. Originally emblematic of the Galactic Empire's dominance, turned into emblems of its susceptibility as the conflict went on. The power dynamics changed further in human. I support the efforts of the Marines. Coupled with the joint efforts of the aliens, were compelled by the resistance to reevaluate their stance on the Galactic Empire that had depended on terror and tremendous authority to keep things under control, now encountered a rival it was unable to intimidate or simply defeat. The understanding that Earth wouldn't capitulate alters the trajectory of the invasion, laying the groundwork for the aliens' final phase of the struggle. Generals confronting increasing losses and among their forces, DIS-AR made their final effort to take back control of the situation. Consequently, their approach was now centered on obtaining a resounding victory to restore dominance, but their failure to adjust to the uncertain resistance made them susceptible to the Marines, in addition to the united human forces taking advantage of these flaws. To carry out a last set of strategic hits, Earth's defenders, who are now outfitted with a greater comprehension of foreign technologies and strategies, introduced coordinated assaults on vital command centers for alien infrastructure, relays for communications, and the supply depot became the main targets of these attacks. Weren't limited to causing harm, but about methodically tearing down the capacity of aliens to maintain their. Each operation's success was further undermined the ability of the invaders to reorganize, and the Marine counterattacked and carried on with his attempts to weaken the invaders' leadership with collected intelligence from earlier interactions. He recognized weaknesses in the general's leadership structure, that his precision assaults produced fear and bewilderment among the alien ranks, intensified their mounting sense of failure once assured of their abilities. Alien soldiers' superiority started to doubt their goal, and morale for effectiveness fell. And the number of desertions rose as the war's momentum shifted in humanity's favor. The generals, who were in dire need of saving their campaign, used additional aggressive strategies that they used to push their aiming to push the remaining forces to the limit to overcome the opposition by sheer numbers. This tactic, while first efficient in making some progress, eventually caused the human forces to backfire. Under the direction of the Marines commander and strategic understandings tailored to these modifications, and retaliated with coordinated defenses that caused significant damage to the foreign powers as the battle progressed at its peak. The Marine led an important operation aimed at the foreign generals. This operation directly needed the combined efforts of the greatest combatants and the recently created hybrid technological advancements originating from the reverse engineering of resistance alien systems. The accomplishment of this mission would not only get rid of the command of the invasion, but also cause a severe psychological injury to the attack is carried out by the surviving alien forces. Was well thought out and carried out. The generals caught off with precision. Protected by the audacity and professionalism of the assault, discovered that they were alone and weakened. Their sophisticated defenses, once believed to be impregnable, were defeated by the fusion of human creativity and decision that the generals were used to. Watching conflicts from the perspective of safety, were compelled to face encounter with the truth of the resistance. Their loss signified the pivotal moment in the conflict with the alien forces were destroyed by generals. Lost. The remaining Central Command troops, who were disheartened and leashed, became simple targets for Earth's well-organized retaliates against the Galactic Empire, which had centralized and relied on terror authority to preserve its supremacy, failed to withstand the impact of humanity's adaptive and dispersed resistance. In following the general's defeat, the extraterrestrial fleet withdrew from Earth. Wounded yet triumphant, the price of there had been a lot of tension with notable deaths and extensive damage, but the tenacity and resolve, if mankind had triumphed over an adversary who had misjudged the Marine strength of spirit, whose activities had sparked a worldwide backlash, became a representation of this Earth's triumph. Leaders that understand the importance of after the win, their world started to be rebuilt. With a revitalized feeling of solidarity and goal, that the knowledge gained from the invasion influenced fresh perspectives on global collaboration and defense, guaranteeing that humanity would be more equipped. Ready for the war's next obstacles, had made public not just the weaknesses of the adversaries of Earth, but and its people's enormous potential when unified by the same goal. The Galactic Empire is now cognizant of the price of Earth, underestimating, and withdrew to reevaluate how it handles the loss on Earth. Fired shockwaves through the galaxy, contesting the idea that the empires for the first time. Invincibility means leaders have to consider the potential that their Earth's dominance was not absolute. triumph turned into a ray of hope for other repressed societies, proving that even the most strong empires could be opposed by the Marine, who has performed his duties in the Earth's defense, went back to being silent, life bearing the burden of his experiences, as well as gives up his legacy. But it endures via the accounts of his deeds and the motivation they gave humanity, bolstered by its triumph, accepted a future influenced by the solidarity and resilience that surfaced throughout the battle. The Earth invasion turned into it was a pivotal point in human history. More than only defeating an alien army, but evidence of the power and inventiveness of a species that declined to be overcome by the knowledge gained from this conflict, served as the basis for a new age that is characterized by collaboration, creativity, and an uncompromising resolve to save the environment and its citizens. The Marines' behavior and humanity's combined efforts made sure that the planet Earth would never be undervalued.